Hey everybody, it's Quentin Mills here from the Hunters of Light. It's Tuesday, so it's another Tuesday tutorial. And today we've got Martin Osner that's going to be taking us through hand painting a black and white or hand coloring a black and white image, to create a pretty cool effect. So I think we'll hand over to Martin here. Let's go and have a look at his tutorial.
Hi everybody, my name is Martin Osner. I'm a fine art photographer, and today we're going to do a short fun tutorial on how to hand paint black and white photographs, but this time using Photoshop. So as I said earlier, that this technique is best suited for actually hand painting, but we can get a reasonably good result on Photoshop if we're careful. The one thing that I think is important to note here is that your selection of picture, or the selection of the photograph that you're actually going to use, should be something that's a little bit more vintage perhaps, or something a little bit older. It suits the technique. And also another thing is, you'll see that the one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to be perfect. So we really want to feel as if that this was done by hand. And art isn't perfect, so that's not what we're trying to achieve. So let me take you through this quickly. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our layers. And in our layers here, I'm going to make a duplicate copy. So I'm going to make two copies, one on top of the other. And then what I will do is I will keep this background copy just for right at the end, in case we need it. And I'll work on the top copy, and I'm going to make another copy on top of that. So we're going to end up with three layers, one on top of each other. So this layer, the second layer over here now, just in case you're not sure where I am, I'm over here in the layers palette of Photoshop. So what I'm going to now do is I'm going to take this top layer and I'm going to take the color out. So I'm just going to go use saturation and take this saturation out. You can make this black and white layer as you wish. It's up to you. There's so many different ways of desaturating in Photoshop, but this is just one way. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the layer that I have just created, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give color to the bottom layer. Now just by the way, the duplication you can do just by right clicking inside the layer and then choosing duplicate. So let's continue. I'm going to switch off the actual eye, so you can't see the top layer anymore, and I'm going to activate the bottom layer. In this layer I'm going to go image adjustments, and I'm going to add color. So I'm going to put in color. Now here you can put in any color you like, and you can put in color in your shadows, your midtones, and your highlights. So that would be up to you depending on the effect that you're looking for. So let's go and just use midtones for this, and let's add a color that we can add to a certain area of the picture. I'm thinking of adding blue. So I'm going to take blue and I'm going to drag blue across and maybe add a bit of cyan to that as well. So it's like a light cyan sort of blue, and I'm going to say OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch on the eye to the top layer, and I'm going to activate the top layer. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start to bring color through in selected places. For this you would need to go over to the other side of your of Photoshop. You would have to go onto the left hand side, and here what we will do is we're going to use the eraser tool. So the eraser tool, we're going to set it to a very nice sort of soft edge, and then the size we will control on our keyboard itself. So I'll be able to increase and decrease the size on the keyboard, and I can do that using the square brackets. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to set the opacity nice and low, because what I want to do is I want to create a brush effect that is not perfect. And the way that we can do this is just by dropping it, start at about 50%, but you can change that as you wish. And we're going to start to, as if we were actually brushing with the brush itself, we're going to start to add this color. So we're going to basically rub away the top layer until the color starts coming through. So here we go. So I'm just going to add this color to the background. As you can see, I'm not trying to be too perfect. I'm just trying to get a color tone. So I've added it to all those highlights. Right. And then in some areas you rub a little bit more so that you don't get, well, sort of you will get sort of a patchy sort of a look, and that's really what we're after. So let's say that's the blue color that I'm looking for. At this stage we commit, so I'm just going to put a little bit more there. We commit, so we right click and we say merge down. So we're basically merging these two layers together. Now we take this top layer, we duplicate it again, we say OK. The bottom layer over here is going to remain as is, and the top layer we are going to start to add color. Sorry, I mean it's the other way around. The top layer is going to stay as it is, and the bottom layer is going to be the color. So I'm going to switch off the eye to the top layer. I'm going to work on the bottom layer now. I'm going to use the same procedure, and I'm going to take out the saturation. I'm going to add in a second color. So let's go something a bit more rusty. Image adjustments, color balance, and let's add in a little bit more of a yellow with a touch of red. So we've got a slight sort of rust look coming through. Now I do the same thing. I switch on the top layer. I activate the top layer. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to brush through the color. So let's add this color to, I suppose we can put it over here onto the chrome area. Let's see what that looks like. So there we start to work through. You can zoom in if you like, but remember, the idea is not to be perfect. The idea is that it gets the feel of a brush being used, and there's a little bit of spillage here and there, I guess. Right, so there we are. That color's been added. I'm going to just put a little bit more in certain areas. So if I switch off now my bottom layer, if I switch both off, you'll see that's where I've rubbed through. What you can also do now, if you wanted to, if you didn't like the color, you can go onto the background layer, and using your levels, for example, you can even darken or lighten the tone by just pulling your levels either way. Or what you can do is you can go and add image adjustments, hue and saturation, and I can start to add lightness and brightness to the color if I so wish. Or I can start to add different hues as well if I so wish. So that is all up to you. I'm going to just put these all back to 0 because we're not going to use them. And at this stage we commit. So we merge down. I'm just going to use a keyboard command of Command E, and that merges down, and now we continue. So we just keep on and keep on doing the same thing. So we duplicate the layers. The top layer now we basically is our actual layer, we switch it off. The bottom layer we take out the color, and it sounds a little bit like a stuck record now, but that's the way it is. Image adjustments, color balance, and now we go looking for another color. So let's move into the green, cyans, perhaps add a little bit of yellow. Oh, it's terrible. I think I'm going to stick to the yellows over here, but I'm going to make a slightly different yellow to the color we've just had. I'm going to go a little bit more red. And let's say that's it. And here we go back again, and now let's do this large area over here. So now we start to add in our second color. Sorry, third color in this case. Right. And so we continue. And you just imagine you've got a paintbrush in your hand. So quite like the fact that there's places it actually hasn't come through. Like for example over here, I quite like these effects where there's a little bit of blue coming through. Right, so I'm going to just continue with that, and I'm going to add in a little bit of the same tone along the top over here. I wasn't that good with that. Let me do it again. There we go. And now we have to commit to it as well. So, just while we're about it, let's add that same tone down to the bottom here. Oh, that's a little bit too strong. So I'm just going to go back on the history, and I'm going to knock back the brush intensity for the bottom. It's coming through a little bit too heavily. So let's try that again. That's better. That's much better. Right. Okay, and now we continue. So we'll commit to that one, right click, duplicate layer again, and now same procedure along the way. Let's just add a little bit of this nice sort of, it's almost like a blue desaturated tone. So I'm going to do that by taking this color over here, and I'm going to go image adjustments, hue saturation. I'm going to pull the saturation up, but not all the way. So somewhere over there, and that should add a nice little blue to it when I start to brush it in. So now we will start to bring that in. So just using this in certain areas where I would want it to come up a little bit more blue. There we go. That's it. Might even do some of this in the background as well, where the blue's was a little bit intense with the first one that we put in. Can rub some of that through as well. Just soften that background off a little bit. Yeah, and so you continue with different colors. The sky's the limit. I think just a word of advice here is that try not to do this with a color picture open next to it so that you can replicate the color, because that's not the idea. If that's the case, you might as well have just left it in color in the first place. Try to rather do this that you make the color a little bit different in comparison to what the original was. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to just try pick up this color just for this area over here. I think we just need to add a little bit of tone to that, and then we can start working with the background layer. So at this stage I'm going to commit to that color. I'm going to merge it down. Now I'm going to duplicate the layer again, and we will do it one more time. We make this one black and white, take the saturation out, right? Okay, there we go, image adjustments, color balance. And here we will go back and put in, I think that sort of yellowy sort of tone could be quite nice, and I might add it to highlights as well. So that's the color. And now we go back to our original and we can paint this color in just up on the hood over here. And I think I'm going to just add a little bit more of this just to separate the bumper a little bit. I'm going to leave the international, the logo here with the international, and I'm going to actually leave it in black and white. I think it looks quite cool. And then just add a little bit of this yellow. Oops, that's too much on that side. But just add a little bit into some places as well. Good. That's a nice. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit of blue now to the bottom. So let's just do that while we can. And so you just get it. Yeah, it just becomes the same old, same old. We're going to take out the saturation. Command B for color balance. Add in the blue that I was talking about, but I'm going to do it to highlights now, so that there we go. That's it. And then very subtly, this one is going to require a very subtle tone. We will now start to rub through just the blue. You can see it coming through. There we go. That's quite nice. Okay. So I'm sure you get the idea. That's more or less what you want to do. And when you're all done, you can commit to your color again by merging your layer down. And now you can also have a look and see. So there's your original color that we had, and here's the hand-painted color. They're quite different, but you can, if you want, you can take the opacity and you can drop the opacity of the top layer and allow some of the background layer through. That depends on you. And of course now you can take this through a whole lot of other layer techniques in order to get different effects. But I think what's important to note over here is that, and I just want to see if I've got a copy of the old car just to show you. Right, so here's a hand-painted black and white picture. So here there's a lot of difference. So this one is actually painted on paper, and here you can see the inconsistencies. You can actually see the paper texture, and you can see the inconsistencies in the painting. That's really what we're trying to get when we are hand painting our actual pictures. Look at the background over here. Look, you can actually see in this case, the watercolor that was added. So that's really what we're after, and I'm sure that that with a little bit of practice you can you can have quite a lot of fun with it. I think in this case, just to finish it off, I'm going to take, what I'll do is flatten the image, and just to finish it off, I'm going to take it through to the camera raw filter, and I'm just going to take it through to the radial filter, and we'll just use the outside. I'm going to reset the radial over here to local corrections. I'm going to work with the outside of the circle, and I think what I'm going to do here is just add a little bit of burning to the outside of the card, just to bring some attention to this area here. That I think works quite well, and that is sort of the effect. Well, I hope you like it, and I hope you can do something with it, and I'd love to see your results. Yeah, until next time, cheers.